But the big question we keep asking perhaps from time to time is whether India can trust China, as the two leaders talked about a settlement today. Joining us here in the studio tonight, we have former Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, Mr. K.C. Singh. We have General Shankar Roy Chaudhary, the former Chief of Army Staff, joining us tonight from Kolkata. Also with us from the BJP, Mr. Tarun Vijay. Mr. N. Ram, the former editor of The Hindu, joins us tonight from Chennai, and we'll also be joined shortly by Dr. Abhishek Singhvi of the Congress Party. Let me ask Mr. Singh first. What would you say is your overall takeaway from this trip, coming as it does after such high tension between the two countries in Ladakh? Lots of niceties exchanged today. What's the substance?
Well, the Prime Minister is the economic czar of China. He had come on, Prime Minister Lee, he had come on a specific mission, and the mission was to focus on the economic and the commercial side. He's spending time in Mumbai, he's meeting corporate India. He realizes that is one of their major constituencies, and they're looking at infrastructure. In fact, as he arrived here, we had news in the morning that one of the Indian companies, SR, was taking a major loan from a bank there. So this is where he wanted to shift the focus away from the boundary issue. Now, the boundary issue has gone away, but we still haven't got a satisfactory answer, because after all the rigmarole, the two prime ministers told us that it's gone back to the special representatives. Now, the special representatives have been dealing with it. 15 meetings they've had, and the high point was 2005. And the Prime Minister himself referred to it, to the principles which were determined in 2005 to settle the boundary principle. And there were two principles in that: following the general contours and not displacing populations. It happened, I think it's significant that that particular high point happened as India was beginning to seriously engage US in terms of the civil nuclear deal. But as the deal becomes serious and the Chinese also become more confident after the financial crisis, suddenly they went back. We've not had progress after that. Now, this is again another correction we are seeing. We are seeing a correction where I think they've got their entire periphery up in arms. Senkaku Islands with Japan, South China Sea with the ASEAN countries, and with us they had an incident. They would want to de-escalate some parts of their periphery and focus on some parts, probably Japan.
But you don't think you got the answers from them today?
Well, they managed to brush the issue aside. They've left it to the special representatives. There'll be a new one from the Chinese side. From the Indian side, it'll be the National Security Advisor. But that doesn't still tell us how we are going to solve that problem. Otherwise, time and again, you're going to have this issue again.
General Shankar Roy Chaudhary, is there a point with what Mr. K.C. Singh says? Because I actually asked this question at the press conference today at the Ministry of External Affairs. I asked, did we actually ask the Chinese Premier why this happened? Because that still seems to be a mystery. Why did this incident in Ladakh happen in the first place? Do you also feel that there are still many unanswered questions? Does that make you uneasy?
Doesn't make us uneasy. I think we've gone beyond that. we're a confident country now. But in my view, I think this whole visit of the Chinese Premier to India is really not over yet until he visits Pakistan. Because we have to see the visits to India and China as interlinked. And we will have to look at what the Chinese Premier says to the Pakistani establishment, particularly the new Prime Minister, Mr. Nawaz Sharif, who is very India friendly, who has also got a hawkish military establishment. So I think I would reserve my comments on what Prime Minister Lee has said until we hear what he tells the Pakistani establishment after he goes there. Then the major issue is, of course, economics. Economics is rightly, he went to Bombay, he went all over the place, very good, that's very nice. Again, the big issue, will he allow manufactured Indian goods access to the Chinese market? So far, the Chinese have been taking primary goods like raw materials from India. They have refused to let Indian manufactured goods, particularly textiles and electronics, to enter the Chinese market. Will that be happening now? We have to watch all these things before we can, really see what.
But it's interesting that you say that you feel that we've moved past the Ladakh issue and that we're dealing with this much more confidently. I want to take that to Mr. Tarun Vijay. Mr. Vijay, do you agree with that? Because the BJP has been extremely critical of the way the government has handled the China issue and the Prime Minister in particular. Do you believe that the Prime Minister laid down the law to the Chinese as far as he could, that he talked tough. He said that there needs to be peace on the border if you want the entire relationship to move forward. Was that good enough for you?
I think Prime Minister was very firm with the Chinese, and the joint statement issued by both the governments, both the Prime Ministers, shows it all. We have included the human rights issue in that first time, and secondly, it has been agreed by both the governments that unless there is a final settlement of the border dispute, we will have to maintain peace and tranquility on the borders. I think this is a success of Indian diplomacy, and we give full marks to the Indian partners, and they have been very firm. After Mr. Rajnath Singh, BJP president, also demanded that Salman Khurshid should not be going to Beijing unless they withdraw their forces and soldiers back to the previous position. And that was finally done. Even Salman Khurshid agreed to it, and the Chinese agreed that their soldiers will return to their previous positions. And secondly, the kind of a vast gamut of agreements that we have arrived in this visit is simply path-breaking, and I appreciate it. We have been working on the media exchanges, on youth exchanges, giving more facility to the Kailash Mansarovar Yatris, and then scientific agreements, and especially the strategic economic partnership. That's very important for us, and we have also been able to include in the joint statement the corrections for trade imbalance. In fact, the present trade, bilateral trade is very much in favor of China, and Indian side is after that trade imbalance has to be corrected, and as rightly said that the Indian manufactured goods have to be more accessible in the Chinese market. And that has been the Indian demand,
refreshing to hear.
I'm sure that the Chinese...
It's actually refreshing to hear from the BJP that you feel that it's a firm joint statement, that it's a victory for Indian diplomacy. I want to quickly take back to Mr. KC Singh, because you seem to be a tad disappointed with the visit.
No, I'm not disappointed. I want to see not just his visit to Pakistan, it's obvious what he's going to do there, but how do we deal with PM's visit to Japan? We postponed an exercise with Japan and US, because to be lulled into complacency and think things are normal with China would be a mistake. It's a rising power, and you have to have some kind of a subtle containment strategy in position. It will not be neo containment, it will be some kind of holding of hands.
I would like to reply to that.
Just a minute. Some kind of holding of hands of the democracies of Asia, because this problem, simply as the Foreign Minister, External Affairs Minister said, let's not go into the why of it. I think we still haven't gone into the why of 1962. The Henderson-Brooks report is still locked up somewhere.
So you agree that we need to go into the why of it?
A country must go, and not only us. I was at a seminar recently with Americans in Paris, and they even, in America, there's a debate going on. How do we deal with China? Is it a benign rise? Have they gone past Deng Xiaoping's benign rise? Because they're flexing their muscles all around. Is it simply a transfer of power, some new lobbies within PLA? So it's a dangerous...
so there's a danger of being complacent about this. Mr. Vijay, quick response from you before I come to the other panelists.
Nadi, I must say that India and Japan are moving ahead in a very, very bold manner, and our cooperations and strategic partnership is moving ahead at a very fast speed. I was in Tokyo just 15 days back, and their Deputy Prime Minister Taro also was here just 10 days back, and he gave a very illuminating and very bold speech in Delhi, and that is well taken. There is no complacency. At least we speak for India. We don't, when we speak about foreign affairs, there has to be a national consensus, and that should be about the domestic political fragmentation. So here it is that the Japanese and Indians are moving ahead very boldly, and their strategic cooperation is moving ahead. But that should be independent of what we are doing with China. We cannot give a thekedari to PLA to take care of our defenses. It is the government of India's responsibility.
Well, it's actually refreshing.
And they have to build up the defense line on the borders.
Like I said, it's refreshing to hear that now you're talking about the importance of having consensus on foreign policy. Let me just get Mr. N. Ram in here. Mr. Ram, how would you, assess the visit? Because one criticism, as Mr. KC Singh was pointing out, is that we seem to have basically gone back to leaving it to the special representatives to talk about the border issue, for instance. So there's some disappointment. Others feel that the joint statement didn't reflect India's concerns on the recent incidents strong enough. What would you say?
No, I think I totally disagree with Mr. KC Singh about containment and all that stuff. It's old hat. That's in a bygone era, and don't even dream of that. India and China, I'm closer to what Tarun said. India and China have to get together as neighbors, as partners, as strategic cooperators. And I think let's make a distinction between keeping peace and tranquility along the line of actual control, a distinction between that and resolving the boundary question, which is very far away. And I don't think political India is ready with the specifics for this deal. It's going to take a very long time. So let's not mix up the two issues. The immediate task, which has been attended to very well by both sides, is to affirm that peace and tranquility has to be maintained along the very long line of actual control, in this case in the Ladakh sector, and that has been done. As for the rest of it, I think the agreements are excellent. Bilateral trade is in the region of $70 billion. It's seen a rapid growth, but as the Chinese Prime Minister said, it's too modest. And I was just looking at the estimated wealth of Bill Gates. It's a little above the bilateral trade figure between India and China. It's a little over $70 billion. So we can do much better than that, but on the other hand, it's grown quite rapidly from a very low base. So, and I think the exchanges that Tarun mentioned are very important. So let's not pretend that India has any talk tough and all that is not the way to go. India, I think Manmohan Singh has put forward his view firmly. The Chinese have also firmly reiterated their concerns on the activities of the separatists in India, the Dalai Lama and others, according to him. And the Indian government has reiterated its position that they are here, that the Dalai Lama is only a religious figure and has no political role,
right.
which is a sort of
I just want
formal
to come
statement to make.
Mr. K.C. Singh wants to respond.
Who's being firm?
Mr. K.C. Singh wants to respond to what you have to say. Mr. Ram, and then I'll come to Dr. Singhvi. Yes.
Well, I respect Mr. Ram and his views, and of course I read the paper every morning. One simple question: if we have such strategic convergence with Pakistan, with China, why have they just given a fourth plutonium-producing reactor to Pakistan, which is going to be producing more plutonium, more bombs, and in exchange probably got Gwadar? Is that strategic convergence? This is something which is undermining India's security. Did we raise it with them? There is no evidence. Did we do some plain speaking over Pakistan with them? If they start rolling back a little from Pakistan, I would understand that they are concerned about us. But in your neighborhood, they just don't care.